Howdy, everyone. Tad Stevens on the Micro Success Secrets podcast, where we focus on business, psychology, and marketing, and how you can use that in your business daily and long term. Today, I'm talking with Lesli Doares, who shows men how to create a marriage that is passionate, authentic, and a true partnership. She brings over 20 years of experience working with couples, combined with her personal experience in a 36-year relationship with her husband, to create a paradigm shift in marriage so it can become a space where both partners feel respected and included. She is also the author of Blueprint for a Lasting Marriage: How to Create Your Happily Ever After with More Intention, Less Work, and the upcoming Being a Hero Husband: Proven Strategies to take your marriage from okay to great. Lesli, thank you for being on the show, and let me know if I missed anything.
I think you covered it all, and thank you so much for having me.
All right, super. So let's get going. And I always start with this question just because it brings up some good conversation. So if you could get in a time machine, for example, and you could go back in time and you could change one business or life decision, or it can be both. If you could change one of those decisions, first off, would you change it? And if you would change it, what would you change it to?
Wow, that's a really interesting question. And it really made me think when I first saw this. And I probably wouldn't change it only because it's gotten me where I am, no matter how convoluted that process was. And believe me, it was very convoluted. But the actual decision that I would change, and I think it's a mistake that I think it's a decision that a lot of people make, is the actual decision itself was changing my major because of the boyfriend that I had in college. But that's actually a more global decision about what was the driving force of living my life at that particular point in time. And it became what trying to reinvent myself so that I would be acceptable to somebody else.
Right. Okay. So good answer. And kind of related to that is, if you could go back in time and you could look and find a decision that you made that turned out just super positive. You can look back and you can, it's kind of a dividing line that you can look at your life before that and after that. Do you have one of those?
Oh, yes. It was agreeing to marry my husband. We had known, in fact, if he had proposed to me 24 hours after we got together, I would have said yes. He waited a whole 3 months.
Okay.
But this was one of those decisions where people think you're crazy when I tell the story. It's like, you did what? But it was one of those things where everything felt right, and so, and it's been just about 36 years, almost to the day, that he proposed, and I have never regretted that decision at all. It's been a great decision.
Okay, super. And the next question can be the same one or can be different. Just it depends on the person. Do you have a decision that was the scariest?
Well, in some respects, yes. The decision when my husband proposed, and it was the first time we actually started talking about getting married. He was at graduate school. He was actually in Colorado, and he was moving across the country to continue schooling. And he asked me if I'd consider going with him. And I said, only if there is one, if not two rings on my left hand, meaning I'm not just going on a whim. But I made that decision to go. And I didn't really know anybody. It was in a very different part of the country than I'd ever been in. And so it was like, what am I doing? I'm crazy. I've known this guy for 4 months, it's like, what? Yeah. But so that was actually pretty scary. And then we've actually bounced back and forth across the country a couple of times, basically not knowing anybody. So I've done it 3 times. So, obviously I've lived through all 3 experiences. So.
Okay. Well, speaking of living through things, and I'm going to move a little in a different direction and getting through things. When you come upon decisions like that, or even small decisions, it can be big or small decisions, but something that, it's scary, you don't know what to do. Basically, as a lot of people say, they get stuck. Do you have a way that you approach those decisions that you could share that that gets you through that decision in such a way that, yeah, it's methodical. You know what you're going to do. You evaluate it, you look at it, and you move towards it. Do you have any of those?
Well, and that's a really interesting question, because it all comes down to the same source of get clarity. What is it that I want? What are the things that scare me about what I want? Because even some of the positive things that we want can be absolutely terrifying. Just ask anybody who's had a child, right? Oh my gosh. Yeah. And so it's our body has the answers. We all have been born with, whether you want to call it a gut instinct or intuition or whatever, there's actually, and we're actually learning this from a neurological perspective, there actually is this information that if we can quiet down, tune in, and get clear, it's like, what's going on? What is it that I want? What am I afraid of? Because especially, we don't just live in our own world. We live in a world of relationships. So whether that's our family of origin or our current partner or our friends or whatever it is, any decision we make is not just about us. And sometimes those other voices can get really, really loud. And sometimes those voices are coming from our childhood. And so it's about just getting quiet and thinking about it. And one of the best ways is to actually write these things down. When we put it out on paper, and then we can go back and go, oh, well, that's not true. Or this is true, but only about this, right? But when it runs around in our head, it is the truth. But when we can get it out of our heads and onto this objective piece of paper, it gives us the opportunity to go through and go, oh, okay, here's the pathway. And I'm also a big proponent, especially because of what I do, of finding somebody that you trust and bounce it off of them. Because we see the worst of ourselves, and other people who care about us frequently will see the best. And so they can serve as a balance to the nasty voice in our own head.
Okay. All right. Excellent answer. And that comes up a lot. I mean, I hear that in a lot of answers to that little group of questions, is that in the way I phrase it, because I coach and I mentor people here in the area that I live in, especially small business. But what I tell people is that, and I can't remember if this is, maybe you can help me here, the proper term or not. But when we get an idea in our head, and if it's a scary idea or, it's something that we're not comfortable with, is it expands to a value that is far larger than it really is in relation to all the other ideas we have, just because we're thinking about it. So if we can, like you said, quiet down, let that kind of settle a little bit. It's what, and I can't remember the term yet. I think it's called cognitive dissonance. Is that's just something we do, and there's an instinctive use for it, but a lot of times it can get in our way. So I really love the answer, like I said, that you just gave, is to calm down, because a lot of people don't do that.
Yes, and I make that sound so easy, don't I?
Yeah, if we could just turn it down a little bit, keep going, that'd be great.
Well, and the key, and we actually know this, is that just slowing down our breathing. We seriously underestimate the power of breathing. And so when we can slow down our breathing, that slows everything down. And that's actually the way to grab any strong emotion, whether it's fear, anger, hurt. Of course, we generally don't want to minimize the joy and happiness emotions, but the harder emotions, if we can just breathe through them, and that because what's happening is our primal brain is seeing threat. And so it's gearing up for this fight or flight mode, which we don't want to become. We want to be able to move. But when we breathe, it reconnects our cognitive brain, and we can have our cognitive brain can have a conversation with our primal brain going, okay, what's really going on here? You are not being chased by a lion. You are not going to die. You're
not fixing to be dinner, right? You're okay. It's going to be all right.
But we have to breathe in order to be able to do that.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent advice. So I want to start to wrap up a little bit here.
Sure.
And I love this last question. I hope the people I ask it love it. But to me, it allows people to get a little bit better feel of who we were talking to on the show and how they got to where they are. Because a lot of people that are listening are working towards that. Or even if they've gotten there, it can always help. I say it a couple of ways. The easiest way is, what are you passionate about? What is your passion? The other way I say it is, why do you get up out of bed in the morning every day and do what it is you do, even when it's not the best day for you? So what gets you going? What's your passion?
Well, my passion is really about helping people to understand what's going on, because that's, most of us, we're trying to get through life. We're trying to do everything in the best way possible, but we're missing some fundamental building blocks. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I say to people is, did you take a relationship 101 class? And most people will tell me no. Most people will say relationships are natural, and up to a point they are, but there's things that we can learn, and relationships run our lives. There are very, very few people in the world who do not depend, who do not interdepend on other people. And so the quality of our relationships actually determines the quality of our lives. And one of the things that people do is that they look at other people and it's like, well, if they would stop doing A, B, and C, my life would be perfect, right?
Yeah, if only.
If only, right? And I want to meet the person who says, okay, how's that working for you, right? Because, and it's about empowering ourselves. It's about, when I have for me, knowledge is power, and not just knowledge, but actual skills to go along with that. And so that's, whether it's a relationship at work, whether it's a relationship with our spouse, whether it's a relationship with our child, the fundamentals are all the same. Now, they get different because of our emotional involvement with it, but the fundamentals are the same. I don't care what kind of relationship you're in. And when you can master your half of the relationship, you actually elevate it. And that's really what I want to help people learn, because I don't do the research. I just apply the research, but there are actually people who study relationships. We know what works. And so it's about applying that. So, I mean, and it's the same thing if you're running a business, right? I have to I'm in a relationship with my customers. I'm in a relationship with my employees. And if I don't know what works, then I'm kind of shooting blind. And it's like, oh, well, why did this month I have a great month and this other month I didn't? Or why did, this experience with my kid or my partner work this way and this one doesn't? Because we're kind of shooting from the hip, as opposed to, oh, I know what works.
And I want to point out there that is an awesome answer, for one. And two is that what I have found over the years in business, and this relates, I'm going to relate it specifically to business, is that the more successful companies, the more successful business people are the ones that build and keep and maintain and nourish those relationships, as opposed to just sticking their widget out there and say, here, buy my stuff. It is, in fact, there's several great case studies, Harvard business case studies, about entrepreneurs that have gone out and have done nothing but build the relationship first, and they just became super successful because of it. So really, really love that answer, and hope everybody heard that, hears that, and takes it to heart, because that is the key. What a lot of people say, oh, what is the next? I want to know the next big marketing thing, the next big that. And what I always tell them is, it doesn't matter, because the techniques that worked 100 years ago still work today, and they'll work 100 years from now, because we're always dealing with people, and people are relationship creatures. And if we don't understand that, it's going to be a struggle for us. So love that answer. Love that answer. Okay. Thank you again, Lesli, very much for taking the time to share and be here. Really appreciate that. I'm going to wrap up now. Is there anything that you'd like to leave with the audience? Contact information, anything else?
Sure. Well, the one thing I want people to know is that almost any relationship can be made better. And so if you're wanting to improve a relationship in your life, but I generally specifically deal with romantic relationships, which are always the toughest to deal with. But they can set up a free 20-minute conversation with me to talk about what's going on and maybe get some ideas about what might work for them. Or they can. I also have a couple of opt-ins, about how to not fight any longer, because I believe fighting is disagreement is a given, but fighting is a choice. And so I have a little ebook that tells people how to stop fighting with their partners, and they can find that at my website, which is www.foundations with an S coaching and is in Nancy C is in Charlie.com.
Okay, super. And I will make sure that all that information, how to get there, the ebook and all that kind of stuff is on the show notes and in the description for wherever we place the audio and video of the podcast. So again, Lesli, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Thanks everybody for listening in. Have a safe and productive week and be the very, very best at whatever it is that you're doing. Until next time, this is Tad Stevens with Micro Success Secrets. Bye for now.